Brian, Alan, I'd like to welcome you here today. 57 years ago, I believe, you took part in VHF National Field Day on West Kip in the Pentlands, south of Edinburgh. It would be really good to hear your recollection of that event. I would like you to introduce yourselves, please.
Hello, I'm Brian Flynn, GM8BJF. I've been out on many field days with the Lothians Radio Society over the years.
I'm Alan Masson, GM3PSP. I was first licensed in 1962. I was a member of the radio club at George Watson's Boys College in those days, and I joined the Lothians Radio Society before I got licensed. I know that the Lothians took part in HF field days well before 1966, and there are still photographs, some very good ones, of a field day in 1955 at Lone Head, with lots of interesting faces in the pictures there.
Yes, I first became aware of field day type activities when I was at school, because I was a member of the radio club at George Watson's, and in about my second or third year in the senior school, the Lothians Radio Society actually ran a HF field day on the playing field.
I believe the field day that was held at Watson's was actually on behalf of the Lothians Radio Society. It happened to be the year that I think Tom Simpson was the secretary of the LRS, and John Hughes, GM3LCP, may have been the president. But anyway, the playing fields at George Watson's were sort of ideal for pitching tents and things like that.
Yes, I do remember members of the Lothians being present there. Not sure if I was a member of the Lothians at that stage. I may have been, because I joined about that sort of time.
Radio club. It started 47, something like that.
47, 48, I believe.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that they may have taken part in field days from the early 1950s onwards.
Well, certainly photographs of field day-like activities are seen from the early 50s, judging by the people involved.
Well, GM5HL, GM5 Harry Lauder, or Hugh Lawson, lived out at Lone Head and had made an arrangement with a local farmer for us to use a field there, provided we presented a large box of chocolates to the farmer's wife.
Makes a change from bottles of whiskey.
Before I got licensed, in fact, and did quite a number of HF field days. I think it was my idea that we would try some VHF field days, and having done some hill walking, I thought West Kip would be rather a good site with a good takeoff in all directions. Yes,
things were quite different then, because I think there was, my recollection is that there was a rule certainly for HF field that you had to run off batteries in the RSGB rules. The generators were slightly frowned upon, I remember, and so that all our efforts in VHF were powered off batteries. We had, I think, 2 or 4 ex-army government surplus lead-acid batteries, 2 6-volt batteries, which we ran in series to power an inverter in the transmitter to generate the 300 volts or so HT for the valves, and that the 2 batteries were usually enough to run the setup for 24 hours.
The thing to remember is West Kip is a hill something like 1,800 feet high, and it's a lot higher than the road nearby, but there is a trail that goes up through a farm up to a sort of col on the Pentland Hills, and then you have to walk up, struggle up, probably another 500 feet, maybe more, with all your equipment, including these very heavy batteries. At least that they had carrying straps, but they were lead acid and heavy. and we had to take all the other equipment, the receiver, the transverter, the aerials, tents, food, etc.
Beer.
Oh, of course, beer, yes, sorry, silly of me forgetting.
I do remember carrying batteries up the hill. Some years ago I was out hill walking there, and I realised, gosh, did I carry a car battery up here in my youth? But it was a long time ago, and I suppose we were young and fit in those days. And there was quite a crowd of us to move the stuff, because we didn't actually have much motorised transport until Alan got his first car, which was a Morris Traveller.
I got permission from the farmer to drive up that trail and park it on the top there. But just thinking back to the people who participated, we were all relatively young. The oldest was Vic Stewart, GM3OWU, right down to 3 or 4 shortwave listeners, including Brian. Didn't even have a beard in those days. We were fit enough to get out there without any problem. We were visited, however, on the Sunday, I think it was, by George Miller, GM3UM, and his son. And they struggled up to see us, but George would be, well into his middle age.
Yes, it was. They were good fun, these contests. I remember them fairly well. And it set me off later on when Alan departed. By that time I'd got my licence. I got my licence in 1968, March 68. And we carried on the portable activities.
In terms of technology, these were relatively early days, certainly compared with today. The equipment consisted of an Eddystone EC10, one of the first transistorized shortwave receivers that they made. There had always been valves before that, so it was a bit smaller than the older receivers. On the transmitter side, I'm struggling to remember exactly what we had. Certainly there was a 2-meter transverter. I can't remember what the basic transmitter was.
I watched you build that transmitter. I took an interest in it because after you left I built my own version of that for our continuing the portable activities, and it used a QQVO310 in the PA, which ran about 10 watts. And I think the driver was a 5763, and the oscillator stage might have been a 6J6 overtone oscillator.
I'm struggling to remember how we got the HT. Would it be a vibrator, perhaps?
The HT was generated by an inverter, which I think may have been, certainly the one I built, I used components from a Murphy mobile radio.
And the aerial was an 8-element J-beam Yagi.
None of this rotator caper that we have now. We leaned out the tent and grabbed the pole and turned it by hand. Referred to as the Armstrong method. They were quite solidly made aerials. I think I still have one. They were very good at the metallurgy, I think better than some of the modern aerials where they tend to get the metals a bit mixed up. And they lasted quite well, the JBM antennas.
Need to recognise, though, that even in 1966, running AM was starting to become a bit old-fashioned, and we would hear quite a number of SSB stations in the contest, and typically they were doing rather better than us. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how many contacts we made. I'm afraid I can't find my log for that field day, but I'm guessing we probably only made 20 or 30 contacts on AM.
It went on at quite a leisurely pace, as I recall, by modern contest standards.
Not surprisingly, we never actually won.
No, we always went out very much for the fun of it.
That's right.
And the camping experience and all the rest of it. But I suppose we still do that aspect of it quite seriously now.
We were running AM transmitters, or an AM transmitter which was crystal controlled, and the standard thing was we'd be calling CQ on that crystal frequency, and then we would say I'm tuning the band for replies.
Maybe you had a valve modulator in yours, because there was another row of valves. I couldn't remember.
Maybe.
I saw 2 rows of valves, because there'd be about 3 valves in the transmitter. Because there'd be an
oscillator,
driver, and PA. Because it started with 8 meg crystals, so they must have probably running an overtone oscillator on 24 megs, which sort of randomised the frequency a bit.
We won't say what it multiplied up to.
Yes. Well, I was going to say something about that.
In terms of geographical cover, I don't think we worked, the London area from West Cape or anything near it.
No, I think we'd get down to the Midlands.
Yeah,
but
maybe from Green Lowther, maybe from there, but not from West Cape.
No.
And I don't think we had any special, propagation conditions up there.
No, I don't never remember the conditions being very good.
Flat.
Yes, the usual.
Yes.
Portable conditions. But no, it was good fun nonetheless. And I remember people visiting us. Colin German GM3VBB came up with a pair of modified, at least I think they were modified 27 meg handhelds. I remember playing with them and talking into them when I wasn't meant to.
3 licensed operators, Vic Stewart, myself, and Roy Tatton, GM3 SRV.
Because I was just a mere SWL at that time, and I think I was largely along to carry the batteries and jobs like that. And we did logging and things. So we were serving an apprenticeship really at that stage.
Yeah, we logged with, paper and pencil.
I think we stretched to biros at times. We were really quite advanced. The social activities were mainly drinking beer, as I seem to recall. Because this was a novelty to us all. I probably wasn't even 18 in some of I definitely wasn't 18 in some of them, so it was a bit of, doing a spot of underage drinking was always a part of the attraction of going out portable. Usually with tins of McEwen's Export, I recall. But yes, we had quite a jolly time, and the catering arrangements were somewhat primitive. I used to enjoy Bachelor's instant curries. They were a sort of predecessor of pot noodles.
I think basically everybody brought their own food. Yes, we didn't have the luxury of, Colin's bacon rolls that we have these days.
Some of us have been filmed, and some of these films, you look closely, were sitting eating cold baked beans out the tin with a fork, or a penknife or something that we probably used to open the tin. It was somewhat primitive, but we survived.
We were fairly isolated up there, of course, but just occasionally you get 1 or 2 hill walkers passing by. But the summit of West Cape is very small. It's almost a point.
And we used to go right on the summit. Yeah. We usually camped. There's a sort of step, and I suppose it was another 20 or 30 feet up to the actual summit. It gave us slight shelter in certain wind directions, but not much.
West Cape is at the west end of a nice ridge of about 4 or 5 summits. One of the benefits, of course, is it's very close to Edinburgh. We didn't have to drive very far to get there. A lot less than Gatehouse of Fleet. It
was good for getting down to Newcastle and into the Midlands area, West Cape. But as we said earlier on, I don't think we got much further afield. We didn't operate through the night. We stayed for the full duration.
I think things got fairly quiet in the middle of the evening. And
yes, I think, we used to go to bed. I mean, it's rather like we do now. The gear was all relatively simple. You could just walk up to it and use it. didn't have to go on a course to operate the transceiver, just is more or less the case nowadays.
I don't think we had any hope of actually winning. It's mainly just to enjoy ourselves.
Yes, it was all fairly relaxed from that point of view. It wasn't as, I don't remember them being really as competitive. I think on the equipment front there's been a huge change, both in the quality and quantity of equipment involved. The early days we were just running off batteries, accumulators of one kind or another, whereas now it's all mains powered generators. We have microwave ovens in the catering tent and all this stuff. What's not changed, I think we're still in tents. That's probably about all.
And you have computers now, of course.
Yes, there's computer logging, we've got internet access now. But there's a whole lot more logistics involved to support all that now.
And the scale of the antennas too. Yes. You need a good crew of people to get them up.
Yes, the antennas are very much larger than what we were using. And we use rotators on them and gin poles to get them in the air. And we've had a few accidents with antennas over the years. I remember one year a box of 4 rather expensive aerials blew over, and the scale of the antennas is way beyond what we started off using. But so is the scale of the equipment. But there's been a general move that way with the march of technology.
We don't seem to have got as far as the open section though, which requires basically higher transmitting power, doesn't it? We've been running in restrictive section for a long time and winning it for Scotland.
Yes. But I think we just don't have the manpower to do the open section, because getting the sort of antennas in the air would be probably beyond us. And also we need a lot more transport than we have.
Do you not think the antennas are about as good as you can get that we use?
Well, the leading
complex
stations in the open section you'll find are all using bayed antennas, like 4 stacked long Yagis on 2 meters, whereas in the restricted section you just have the one antenna. You're not allowed to have stacked antennas. So
okay, so it's not just transmitter power.
no, it's the antennas. I mean, it's really probably the antennas and the transport that limits us.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, the early days we didn't have the logistics issue. You could probably carry the whole station yourself, just about. And also all this operator comfort stuff wasn't highly thought of. Operating positions and swivel chairs. And
we were just sitting on the ground.
yeah, we were either lying or sitting on the ground, getting damp and cold.
57 years later, look back on it with a lot of pleasure. It was great, in its simple way in those days.
Yes, it was good fun, and I don't remember it being as sort of pressurised as they are now, the contests.